Welcome to Saturated and Caffeinated. My name is Chris, and I love all things scuba diving, and I love coffee. Let's take a dive. So today we're diving in Jackson Blue Springs. It's one of 8 or so cave systems on the Mill Pond in Marianna, Florida. I think there's about 12,000 feet of explored passage in this system. It's big and beautiful, and definitely one of the power caves known in Florida. Right now you see me dropping down the chimney. That's a section of passage in the very front of the system. And it drops from about, 35-40 feet down to about 80-90 feet right under this duck under right there. I've got a pretty lengthy video, so I'm going to go ahead and speed things up. It's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. One of the first few things that you see in this system is going to be one of a couple breakdowns. This is the first breakdown right here. I'm going to flip things around, give you a different perspective with the 360 camera here in just a second. Kind of a cool perspective here. I just started using this camera a couple weeks ago, and it's kind of an interesting learning curve playing with the lighting and everything, and I'm not really good with it, so please just bear with me. If you see any things that I could be doing better or things that you like, would love to know, so please don't hesitate to give me some feedback. I appreciate it. This is right up the first breakdown. It's kind of a cool rite of passage if you do any of your cave training in this system. You get to tell your friends, I made it to the first breakdown. That's one of the first big landmarks. Another big landmark in this system would be probably the next one. And it's always cool to tell people, I made it to Chicken Head Rock. And that's literally the name of this next feature up here. And it gets its name because it literally looks like a chicken head. It's going to be up here on my left. You can see as I'm passing it here. Tried to get a good shot of it, but that's Chicken Head Rock. Once you pass that, you got another 100, 150 maybe feet of passage before we get to the second breakdown, which is right here. Kind of sped it up, so we got a lot of ground to cover. So that was up and over the second breakdown, and past the second breakdown we're gonna approach the first tee, and that's right here. When line and caves go in separate directions, we get to a tee. It's really important that we mark our exit side of the passage so we know where we came from. You never know, sometimes you might be exiting your dive without visibility, and that could be, pretty tedious and nerving. So if you come back to one of those sections, it's always good to see a marker or something that you left letting you know that that is where in fact you came from, so you don't get lost. So I took a left at that tee, or what we would say we teed left, and now I'm getting to a jump, and I'm going to lay some line here at Queens Bypass, because in this dive the plan is to go down Kings Bypass, and then on the way out we were going to do Queens Bypass. So you see me tying a spool into this line, and I'm sorry it might look all kind of jumbled up. I'm trying to cover a lot of video here, but I'm running a line all the way up to this other line that isn't quite connected yet. So I just filled in the gap with a line that I bring with me. I slowed it down right here so you could actually see that line that I laid. That takes me right back to that yellow line or gold line that I followed in. One thing about cave diving, we have a set of rules. We have 5 really important rules that we always abide by. One of those rules is always have a continuous line to the surface. So, like I said earlier, sometimes you might have to exit a system and you don't have any visibility. Maybe somebody dusted it up, or maybe there was a geological accident. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons. But if we need to, we always have that continuous line to the surface. So we could follow it. We could literally put our hand on that line and follow it back to where we could breathe, open air. Right here, I'm approaching the second tee in the system. And you can see my buddies, they left their markers because they went a different direction than I went. And I'm going to go ahead and mark my marker on their section. It's okay that I left my marker on their section because they verified that exit. So continuing on from the second tee here, I'm going to stop and look at a place that I've been checking out for quite a while. Coming up on Hall of the Mountain King, right there. Okay, I'm going ahead and tying in another spool here. This is the upper section of Queen's Bypass. Now by running the spool here, I'm verifying this exit because that's the other end of the line right there. You always have to verify the exits when you make jumps. That way, when you get to the other end, you know that the jump is good because you've tied it in. If you don't do that, that's called making an unverified exit or an unverified jump. It's not a great practice. Now we're up here at Kings Canyon at the upper end section of it. I'm going to drop my scooter and grab my camera. Dene has already run the line for us, so we're going to go ahead and enter the canyon. I think this is Kevin's first pass through here, maybe. But here it is. Here's the canyon for Kings Canyon. Man, it's such a pretty section of cave. It's just absolutely remarkable. Get a good selfie shot there because you have to. But look at that. I mean, you just can't argue with it. I believe this whole Kings Canyon jump is about 1,000 feet. Maybe not. But up here, in about 30 or 40 feet, there's a T. And we are going to take the T to the right, or T right, as we say. And in this section, that T right actually goes down. And when we go down that T, that takes us on the King's Bypass. Now the Kings Canyon line continues on, and I've been to the end of that line, but I've never actually seen the end of the line from the gold line side, which is really, really important because we have to tie into that. And if we don't tie into that, again, that's an unverified exit, and we just really don't want to do that. So here I am signaling to the team that we've arrived at the T right there at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to turn myself around here in just a second so I can get face to face with Kevin and Dene so we can do a little communicating. Because in cave diving, communicating is very important. Communicating effectively. So I'm going to ask them if they're ready to drop down this T. And I got a good okay from everybody. So I'm going to ventilate my BC. And I'm going to drop through that crack right there. I got to kind of list to my left a little bit so I could fit through because it's a pretty small crack. But these fissure cracks are so cool. This is really a spectacular dive. Ah, that camera managed to get a good shot of everybody above me. So that's what it looks like. That's pretty cool. Now from my perspective, once I get to the bottom of this line, I'm going to kind of turn to my left and swim under this overhang right here. That's it right there. I mention again, you can kind of see down there in the bottom left hand of the screen that really thin white line. Rule number 1, always have a continuous line to the surface. This is a really good example of a place that is unforgivable in this system. That whole bottom right there is just the finest powder. And if you're not careful with how you kick, or your buoyancy is not under control, and you were to stir that bottom up, you could have a really bad day, and you would have to absolutely follow that thin line back to the line that Dene put in that connects us back to the gold line, and then we would take that gold line all the way back to the entrance of the cave. You can see here how it gets kind of low, so I want to be extra careful about my kicks through this section, because I really don't want to disturb any of that silt. That would just be an absolute bad day for the people behind me. I want to make sure I'm doing a good job and letting them have as good of a visibility as I have. Playing with some of the settings and features or effects on that camera. And then we're going to go ahead and get closer to the exit of the Kings Canyon bypass. Yeah, here we are. Up there at the top left, you can barely see it, but that's the gold line. So we're back at where Dene dropped his scooter. You'll see it here in just a second. Right up there you can see where Dene snapped the King's bypass line into the gold line. I know I keep talking about that rule, but it's really important. Could you imagine being back in there where we were and somebody getting it nice and dusty to where you can't even see your light in your face and trying to get out of there without those lines being connected? That would just be an absolute terrible way to end a dive. This camera has some neat effects here. It really accentuates the features of the system, or at least this one room in the system. Because right now we're back at the Hall of the Mountain King. I'll try not to use so much of the 360 stuff. I could see how that would get annoying, but sometimes it gives a neat perspective. Dene's going to grab his scooter here and take off. Now we're going to just real quick go back up to the upstream side of that Kings Canyon, remove the spool, grab our scooters, and then head back out. There we go. Now we're on our exit. We're getting kind of back close to the first tee here. We skipped a lot of footage, but that's alright. But that's Kevin in front of me, and then Dene in front of Kevin. Taking it easy, making our way back to the first tee. I'll go ahead and speed things up again. I go to the other side so I can pick up my stage bottle, because you can never have too much gas. I'm going to grab that stage, I'm going to communicate with everybody, make sure we're all good to go. Come back over to the tee, pick up my cookie or my marker. We're going to head on out. We're going to go up and over the second breakdown, make our way back to the first breakdown. I'll slow it down here at the first breakdown. That way you can see what it's like flying back down that thing. It's kind of cool. get a good shot of Kevin flying through there. It's really important on these scooters that we maintain a good control, because man, sometimes these things go fast and you could really cause yourself a headache if you ran into anything. Let's speed it back up, get to the bottom of the chimney, and get ready to wrap this dive up. There we go. Now we're back to the bottom of the chimney at about 88 feet. We do have a little bit of a decompression obligation, so we're going to make our ascent up this chimney nice and slow. Sometimes it can be interesting coming up this chimney because there is a lot of flow in this cave, and that's a really small space. So things kind of get bottlenecked right there, and the flow can push you out if you're not careful. But the three of us have pretty good experience, all full cave divers, and we know how to manage that flow. Sometimes it's actually kind of fun. Now we're back up here at the top of the chimney. I think we're all going to kind of regroup a little bit. And head on out. There's Dean, just making sure everybody is good to go. He's going to spin around there and lead us on out. Typically, when we exit right here, we would get back to the primary reel that was run from the open water to the gold line, and we would remove that. But on today's dive, we're not actually going to remove that reel because if you notice, we did not do Queen's Bypass. So Kevin and I are going to come back in shortly, later actually that afternoon, and do Queen's Bypass. But now you can see the sunlight up there. That's the natural light, letting us know that we're back in the cavern zone. Alright, back up there where Kevin and Dean are hanging out, sits at about 20 feet. That's a really good place to burn off any excess nitrogen you've built up on the dive and complete our decompression obligation. That's a really important rule as well. Hey, listen, I really enjoy doing these dives. It's a big part of my life, and I'm really lucky to be so close to a wonderful system like this. The videos are new. I'm going to try to do the best I can. If you see anything you like or don't like, please let me know. Anything I can do better, let me know that too. Or if you just want to be kind and leave a cool comment, that's always appreciated. Anyways, till next time, dive safe. Later.